Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again in this YouTube astrological segment. I'm going to be talking about astrology and the death of Queen Elizabeth II. Now, the thing is, first off, I want to offer my condolences to the close friends and family of Queen Elizabeth II if they do happen. If any, remote chance, any of those people happen to see this video, that's what I want to do. And I want to say she had a very long tenure at her position, and she died, best of my knowledge, under peaceful conditions. Now, I when I looked this up on the internet, I couldn't find a specific reason as to her death. The cause of death, I don't think it's been disclosed as of yet at the time of me making this video. Um, but I'm sure details will surface gradually on this. But she had some kind of deterioration in her health, though, but it was not stated as far as the specific cause of her death was not stated. But I want to talk about some natal placements in her chart and some transits that may have had uh, connection with her passing. Now, the thing is, one thing that stands out to me is her, very basic, proponent of the chart, her sun being in Taurus. But what makes it distinct and unique? Well, first, the sun in Taurus, the basic fundamental characters can be very stable, placid, calm, loyal, steadfast, trustworthy. Taurus is about things that are enduring, but she has the sun in Taurus at 0 degrees, and that really can reinforce, being in a position of something that is enduring. And she had, saying she had stability at her position. Being that queen, for a very, prolonged, protracted time would be a vast understatement. Her sun in Taurus is also a singleton. It's the only planet in Earth in her chart, so it can be emphasized and stand out more. The sun is about, wanting to, how we want to shine. And I would say the sun also can have a regal connection with it because the sun does rule Leo in astrology. And to me, that could have played an integral role in her position. And she also, another thing too, that she has in her chart, she has her moon in Leo. No shocker there. That said, the moon can be, about what we want to be recognized as, and she was a person, a regal, royal position. Um, Somebody that may have given that impression of grandeur, I would say, whether she was consciously aware of it or not. The moon is about our, our unconscious side, um, and it is a big disparity between, of course, her sun in Taurus and being the moon in Leo and sun in Taurus. Now they don't square by aspect. You could argue it's a long square aspect. You have the sun in Taurus, which of course is the basic character being more introverted, stolid, stable, being very persistent, but can be homebody and likes to have things nice and calm and peaceful. Where the moon in Leo can be really more on an unconscious level, maybe desire a little more excitement, more extroversion, and in the sun in Taurus likes to have things kind of cozy, not really, not being Sun and Taurus people generally aren't overly gregarious or extroverted. It's even stated that they may need to expand you know, their circle, context where you have the moon in Leo is really like practically the opposite, because the moon in Leo may have that need for gregariousness to express extroversion. And moon in Leo can be very dignified, of course, and again, it could be that impression, of grandeur and more extravagant too. There might be a need to be more extravagant, where the sun in Taurus is going to be the basic, personality. The conscious self is more about being disinclined to spend money. Now she has a Capricorn ascendant, and Capricorn, of course, is that sign of authority. The ascendant is about, what we come across as our outer demeanor. And with a Capricorn ascendant, she was somebody that likely came across, could be as authoritative, as very stern, disciplined, structured, responsible. And it was in Capricorn, people, can often live for an extensive time, and she lived to like I think 96 years old. And again, she does have a Capricorn ascendant. It was a little surprising to me. She has the South Node conjunct her ascendant, and that could often indicate some kind of limitations, with her vitality and the energy and physical body. I don't know, her stature, how tall she was, but maybe she wasn't very tall. I don't really have much information about her. You can confer and look that up on the internet. But there's some other things I see in her chart. At the time, I would say that she did. It was stated again. She did have a peaceful passing, and she has Taurus on the fourth house cusp of the end of life, so that's an indicator of having the conditions being very peaceful and tranquil at the end of life, at that latter part of life and the end of life. And she also noticed too, she has Virgo on the cusp of the eighth house. Now, I don't know if there was just a lot of, maybe there was some health related issues, that were connected with her death, because she did have somebody, she had some people, I believe, monitoring her health. I mean, Virgo was connected. It could be, there may have been some intestinal issues or something with the spleen or pancreas, maybe, but that's something that will be disclosed later on as far as the specifics regarding her passing. Now, she also, I noticed in her chart, she has Pluto in Cancer in the sixth house of employment. It's at least a loose conjunction with the North Node, so that's right there. That aspect by itself can show some destiny of being in a position of power, and it's in the zodiac sign Cancer, which is connected with the family. And this is just something that's very, these regal positions are all in the family. I believe the person that had been known as Prince Charles is now going to supplant, her position right now, because their passing has basically renounced, it's renounced her title, and now the person that had been known at one time as Prince Charles is now going. My understanding, he's going to be usurping, I guess you could say, that position. Now, another thing in her chart which stands out too is that she has Saturn in Scorpio conjunct the midheaven. The midheaven in Scorpio by itself could be a placement which I would think would be auspicious for a position of power, because the 10th house is connected with career and business, your authority. And she has Saturn conjunct the midheaven right there could be about really emphasizing a position and authority in your career and livelihood. But being in Scorpio, it's more, even could really emphasize power, one of power and control. She has one of the rulers of that 10th house in her first house, in Mars and Aquarius, so it can be seen on a first impression that she was somebody that really, I would say, thrived and really desired, someone that was seen, as wanting, maybe a position of authority and having notoriety and recognition on a first impression, seeing that there was a strong need for that on that first impression, I should say. And interestingly enough, that ruler Mars conjuncts Jupiter, and Jupiter is, the fortuitous planet. It's also being in Aquarius could be something that's, Aquarius is connected with the unusual, and it's also a something to I noticed in her chart is that Well, as far as a transit goes, it appears that transit Jupiter was at least making a loose conjunction to Mercury. Now, as I've stated in previous videos, Jupiter is very paradoxical. It's very strongly benign and benevolent, but it could also have a tendency to enlarge and expand. Now, in this case, I'm wondering if it may have enlarged some issues like with the brain and the thinking capacity, because Mercury does rule the brain and thinking, and Jupiter can enlarge things. Aries is the sign associated with the brain. Now, Mercury, interestingly enough, in her natal chart, she has Mercury, at least in a loose conjunction to Uranus. It looks like it is conjunct. And right there, that could indicate very innovative, ingenious thinking. Hold on a moment, people. Sorry about that, I'm back. But anyway, in having and then Mercury in Aries could have very pioneering thinking. Having Mercury being placed before the Sun, it can indicate, even though Mercury in Aries can be impulsive and impetuous in thinking, it's still about putting thinking before acting. And she has, and again, having the Sun in Taurus and the ascendant in Capricorn can show that still had a lot of, she was still very premeditative in her nature. In transit Pluto, at the time of her passing, was in the first house and not far from the ascendant. I've spoken about this in previous videos, that when you have, I know it's not conjunct by the transit orb, but I don't think we can definitively say that, say if a transit planet is 5 degrees from an astrological point, that it doesn't feel a vibration. And it is about around 5 degrees, I believe, transit Pluto from her ascendant. And Pluto is the planet connected with death. The first house is associated with the physical body and vitality. Now, she might have had, Pluto's also trauma. Now, I don't know if she had any, being in Capricorn, if there were any issues, with the knees, the bones, the joints, or the hamstrings, or even the gallbladder. But it wouldn't surprise me if there was something connected with that. And also too, what I noticed is that she has Saturn appearing to square her Mars, and as far as that aspect goes, that could indicate that it's just trying, general actions with her might have been more of a laborious effort to perform, certain actions just in general, than the average person. And then having the Mars being in Aquarius, it could be, matters, actions that are connected with selflessness or humanitarianism, altruism. I don't know if she was, involved, if she had any, interest in like maybe computers or electronics or astrology, but just, the general actions I could see where it would require a little bit more of an effort, or she might be, had run into more roadblocks to do the things, to act on certain things. On the positive end, she did have Jupiter conjoin her natal Mars, so that could actually expand and enlarge energy. Could be, I would say, could be fortuitous for your vitality, for your energy, just things, physical matters, just in general. I would say so. I had a friend one time, I used the word loosely. He had his Mars in Aquarius, so he was like, I would say he was pretty much like a genius level in terms of fighting. I don't know if Queen Elizabeth was ever at that level, but I thought it was interesting. And the only other thing too I want to say, and this is not to be derisive or negative, but having the Mars conjunct Jupiter can sometimes enlarge, acrimony and anger. Mars in Aquarius by itself can sometimes indicate contentious situations with friends, but I don't know if that was the case with her or not. Another thing I want to add, it appears that Jupiter is square her Saturn, and I think, what's interesting about that aspect, is that there might have been times when she felt, it may be conflicted in expressing or being optimistic or pessimistic or serious, being jocular, or it might have been, with the Saturn squaring Jupiter, it might have been more of an arduous task sometimes to express, enthusiasm, jocularity, and humor. Jupiter being an Aquarius, she might have had real unorthodox, unusual, sense of humor, I would say. But having Jupiter in the first house, I'm sure she did have a pretty strong sense of humor. And Sun in Taurus, even though it's known to be very impassive and stolid and very placid, the Sun in Taurus can actually have a strong, robust sense of humor anyway. So I'm just trying to see if there's anything else that I needed to, wanted to add to this. And really, that's pretty much it, people. And again, I want to offer my condolences and prayers out to the close friends and family members of Queen Elizabeth, and prayerfully she's in a better place at this point in time, a more peaceful and tranquil place. And anyway, people, this is Edwin Learnard. Until next time, stay well.